I am Jay Silberman. I was twice elected citywide to an at-large seat on the Board of Education during the time when we had a real Board of Education. While on the board, I wrote several groundbreaking and reform-minded policies, including DCPS's first fully articulated attendance policy, fiscal and management reform policy, a complete revision of DCPS personnel policy emphasizing both performance and fairness, and student athletics and extracurricular policy. Prior to that, I was chair of the citywide public school advocacy group Parents United, a PTA president, a member of the Committee on Public Education, and a member of then Mayor Barry's Advisory Committee on Budget. I am a 50-year member of the D.C. Bar, was legislative assistant to Congressman Clarence Long, Democrat of Maryland, who had been a professor of economics at Johns Hopkins, and I was a writer for Education Daily, an industry newsletter. I'd like to discuss the most important issue in the contract before you, retroactive pay for teachers. I'd like to discuss the people, the problem, the possibility, and the plan. The people. Darnell, a math teacher with 9 years in DCPS, and Jackie with 14 years, certified in special education, working tirelessly over the last 3 school years along with their colleagues at a DC middle school. Day by day, side by side, as team teachers in a mainstreamed classroom situation with several students with an array of challenging IEP-identified problems and needs, they carried on, coping to adapt to the challenges of COVID-19 and new techniques for online distance learning. They did their job, and they did it well. During those years, they worked under an expired contract. No raise, no cost of living adjustment, no new contract to replace the one with the 2019 expiration date, as would and should be expected in a proper workplace environment. No, instead, as had apparently become a custom, negotiators, administrators, and bureaucrats dawdled and deferred through endless talks that bogged down over and over for years, so long that the entire subsequent 3-year contract cycle had gone by, and then some. Mind you, with a timely contract, Darnell and Jackie and every single teacher employed during those 3 years would already have received their small but important raises in their biweekly paychecks. Far too late in the game, a breakthrough. Our mayor, the school's chancellor, the union president, with a joint announcement splashed in news releases, on TV, Twitter, and Facebook. Quote, robust back pay in recognition of the tireless efforts and sacrifice our teachers have made over the last 3 years. Unquote. The chancellor positively gushed, quote, our teachers have helped us navigate through a very challenging time in the pandemic, and the retroactive pay was important to go back over the last 3 years to ensure that our teachers know we appreciate them and we were grateful for their work during that time period. Unquote. Great. Good. Finally. Except what? Fine print. Retroactive, but not for everybody? Not for all the teachers who worked during those 3 years? Those teachers for whose work you were just so grateful? who you just admired for their tireless efforts and their great sacrifices? A quarter, a third of the teachers, maybe more, were going to be stiffed, would not be getting the ballyhooed back pay that the muckety-mucks who completed their dickering 3.5 years past due, but were now taking broad public bows for? Really? With straight faces? Come on now. Darnell left after the end of last school year. His aging father had become too frail to keep running the flower shop at 12th and U that had been in the family for 3 generations, and Darnell was the only kin who could step in. Jackie's husband, an Air Force major and pilot, was reassigned to Germany for 3 years, not wanting to separate the family, especially her 3 boys, age 5, 8, and 10, from their dad. Jackie left too. Nora's only child's spina bifida worsened rapidly. The child needed her constant care. Martin had just gotten into his parked car one evening when a drunk driver's vehicle broadsided him. He has already had 3 surgeries and will need more, the doctors say. Carlita left to get a master's degree in counseling. She had learned that she loved that aspect of being a teacher best. Kendrick took a position in a next-door county, not because he didn't love his job and his kids. He did. But he had a wife at home with 2 toddlers. He commuted with their only car, and she felt almost stranded. Then a neighbor told him of an opening at the Arts Magnet School that would shorten his commute to a 4-minute walk. More time for him, for her, for the children. Life happens. Circumstances change, sometimes dramatically, sometimes not. But here's the thing. All of these teachers did the work. If the muckety-mucks had a timely contract in place, they each already would have had their small but well-deserved pay raise in their paychecks as they earned it. But instead, all of these teachers, and 1,000 more, these tireless, you called them that, sacrificing, you called them that, teachers who worked those 3 years, will be deprived of their fair share of the announced back pay, unless the council takes action. The problem. Why do we have a problem? They all worked. Pay them all. Sounds right. Sounds fair. And it's the law. A broad principle clearly stated. Equal pay for equal work. Look it up. It's there twice in the DC Code, section 1611.01A2 and 1611.032. Oh, hold on. The teacher's contract has another citation. 1611.06D. And management suggests that it means you can only get retroactive pay if you are on the payroll on the date that council ratifies the contract, which, in this case, is long after the teachers did the work. And this provision applies to, let's see now, What? It applies to the career and accepted services? That's not the teachers. The teachers are in the educational service. So the contract is wrong, right? Yes. The muckety-mucks mucked it up. There is a similar provision that could be misconstrued to screw over the teachers. 1-611.11J. However, it is not cited in the contract before the council, nor is it referenced or mirrored in the code sections regarding collective bargaining. Read section 1-611B and onward carefully. It describes and applies to the system of classification of educational service employees. And although it places those employees under the personnel authority of the mayor, it is the Board of Education that is charged to develop and then to, quote, provide for the periodic review of its basic compensation systems in order to improve the system and provide continuing conformity with policy, including adequacy of the rates of basic pay. Not only that, but the Board of Education, quote, shall provide for appropriate consultations with employee organizations in the periodic reviews of the compensation system. I don't think that's been happening. To my knowledge, the D.C. State Board of Education doesn't do this. More muckety-muck, muck, and mire. Nevertheless, the retroactive pay limitation referred to in this section of the code, a procedural tail end that some would use to wag the dog of the equal pay principle, restricts back pay, quote, under this section, unquote, which, remember, is the system of classification, and does not, therefore, apply to collective bargaining, which falls under a different code section at 1-617.16 and 17. So, we have the wrong law relied on in the contract before you, and it looks like the other law limiting back pay doesn't apply either. The possibility. Well, the possibility is the council can do the right thing. It can be fair and equitable to the teachers. It can adhere to the law of equal pay for equal work, which ought to be the overriding principle here. And it can clean up the mucked up language mess. Now, I know that Chairman Mendelson has some reservation about intervening in the sanctity of the collective bargaining process. He has twice told me so. But this somehow suggests that this notion of freezing out and denying back pay to a large group of workers was actually bargained. I wasn't, of course, in the room, but I can't believe that it was. The likely and obvious scenario was that management wrote this up, asserted that this is the law, and it was not a topic of bargaining, period. Notwithstanding the chairman's supposition that this was bargained, implying, therefore, that it, even though it was supposedly a law, it is in fact, bargainable, that it could be bargained. Yes, I know. The muck gets murky. After all of these teachers were members of the bargaining unit during the 3 years of 2019 to 2022. The goal was to achieve agreement during that time. An agreement was already past due. Do you think that the teachers actually bargained away the pay of a large portion of their class? Or do you think it was shoved upon them as, this is the law, so it's not negotiable? Of course, we now see that A, it is doubtful that it is a law that applies to collective bargaining at all, and B, there is no doubt whatsoever that the contract cites a provision that does not apply to teachers, to the educational service. Therein lies the possibility to fix this, to do the right thing, to be fair and equitable to the teachers, to adhere to the law of equal pay for equal work. The plan. The plan is simple. Clean this up. The contract misstates the law. The contract is for teachers in the educational service, not in the career and accepted services that the contract wrongly cites. So, reject it with the directive to bring it into compliance, including compliant with the equal pay statutes, and to bring it back clean and clear. Tell them to delete Article 36, Section 2.2 as written, and substitute this concise wording that is consistent with equal pay for equal work. The 2019-2022 raises shall be paid retroactively to all DCPS employees who were members of the WTU bargaining unit during the 2019 to 2022 school years. In the meantime, get a jump on cleaning up the DC Code's sometimes murky, contradictory, and conflicting provisions. Introduce and pass emergency legislation to delete the contrary and confusing retroactive provision at 1611.11J, re the educational service, and by similar rationale, 161106D, re the career and accepted services, because neither teachers nor any other district workers deserve to get scrooged over by a procedural time lag caused by dilatory bureaucratic process. You can fix this. You can ensure fairness and equity. You can do the right thing. I sincerely hope you do. It's not really all that complicated.